I came back from a government deployment to find my house leveled to the ground. Just rubble, dust, and a smug Karen sipping lemonade across the street like it was just another Tuesday. The camera zooms in on the stunned man stepping out of a black SUV, staring at the flattened lot where his family home used to stand. Dust still settles from the fresh demolition. My name's David Brooks. I work for a certain three-letter agency I can't talk about on record. Let's just say when I knock on doors, they get opened real fast. 3 months ago, I had to leave town for federal duty. Covert ops, out of state. Can't even tell you where. I left everything in order. My mortgage, utilities, and even the dumb HOA fees on autopay. I lived in a quiet, gated community in Franklin Ridge, where the most exciting thing usually was Karen Richardson complaining about someone's mailbox color. When I returned, my jaw hit the ground. My house was gone. I walked across the lawn, or what used to be a lawn, and confronted a construction guy still picking up debris. Who authorized this demolition? He shrugged. The HOA president, Ma'am Richardson, said it was abandoned. Back fees or some nonsense. My phone buzzed as I stood there in shock. An email from the HOA, due to non-payment of HOA fees for 3 consecutive months, your property was deemed abandoned and reclaimed under Article 14. Except I'd paid every single dime. Karen saw me from her porch and had the audacity to wave. Should have kept up with your dues, David, she said with that fake suburban smile. She had no idea who she was messing with. I calmly walked back to my SUV and popped the trunk. Inside was a duffel bag, and inside that, my agency credentials. I didn't flash them yet. Not yet. First, I needed to confirm, was this a rogue HOA act or something deeper? I dug through my bank records, payment confirmations, and emails. Everything showed I was fully paid up. In fact, Karen's HOA had manually overridden my payments. They blocked them from their system and claimed I was delinquent. And the demolition? It was illegally contracted. No permit, no city notice. That's when I knew this wasn't just petty HOA drama. It was fraud, destruction of private property, possibly even racketeering if I dug deep enough. And I had the tools to dig very, very deep. Karen was about to learn that she hadn't just bulldozed a house. She had bulldozed a federal agent's home. And I wasn't about to file a polite complaint. I was about to drop the hammer. I didn't show up to the HOA meeting with a lawyer. I showed up with a federal case file. 2 days after discovering the illegal demolition of my house, I walked into the monthly HOA meeting at the Franklin Ridge Community Center. Clean-shaven, dark blazer, badge in my pocket, and ice in my veins. The board was gathered like usual, sipping coffee, and pretending to be powerful. Karen sat at the center in her pastel suit, her hair shellacked into that signature HOA queen helmet. The second she saw me, she blinked hard and fumbled her coffee cup. David, she said, all fake sweet, you're trespassing. This meeting is for residents. Oh, I'm still a resident, I cut in. And I've got documents proving it. But more importantly, I'm here in official capacity now. I opened the file folder and slid a stack of printed emails, bank records, and HOA payment confirmations across the table. Each one stamped, logged, and backed by screenshots from my online banking history. Karen's smile faded. That doesn't prove anything, she hissed. You abandoned the home. The bylaws don't override federal law, Karen, I said. I pulled out my ID and badge. The room went dead silent. David Brooks, Department of Homeland Security. I don't usually deal with petty HOA crimes, but this one involves destruction of private property, mail fraud, wire fraud, and falsifying official records. So now it's mine. Karen's face turned the color of drywall. The treasurer, a skinny guy named Jeff, stood up, stammering, we were told the payments bounced, Karen said. Karen blocked them manually, I interrupted. I've already got the data trail. She revoked payment authorization, altered internal logs, and contracted demolition without city approval. I leaned forward, voice low. She forged abandonment papers. Jeff, a board member, threw up his hands. We didn't know. We just signed what she gave us. Classic Karen. The queen bee pulling strings while the drones buzzed along. Except this time, the hive just got raided. I stood, gathering my files. City code enforcement will be contacting you all. And I've already opened a federal investigation into misuse of HOA authority, falsified notices, and unauthorized seizure of property. Karen tried to regain her composure. I'll speak to my attorney. Do that, I said, but tell her to call my office first. As I walked out, I could feel every eye in the room following me. Karen had gotten away with her petty tyrant routine for years, but she just picked the wrong house to flatten, and I was just getting started. Karen thought this was over. She figured if she just stayed quiet, kept sipping her wine on her porch, and lawyered up, it would all blow over. But she underestimated how deep I was willing to go. That week, I filed formal complaints with the city, the state licensing board, and the IRS. But I didn't stop there. I initiated a federal audit of the HOA's finances under the Housing and Urban Development Act. When you know where to look and have the clearance I do, you can follow every dollar. And let me tell you, the money trail was ripe, tens of thousands in landscape upgrades to vendors with no websites, legal consultations, billed to Karen's sister-in-law's law firm, community outreach funds, that magically disappeared. But the real kicker? A $40,000 abandonment recovery expense, tied directly to my home's demolition, filed just 2 days before the bulldozers came in. I had enough now to bring in the cavalry. Friday morning, 7 a.m. sharp. 3 unmarked black SUVs rolled into Franklin Ridge. I wasn't in uniform. I didn't need to be. I stood outside Karen's house in a plain button-up, coffee in hand, watching agents fan out. 2 went to the HOA office. 2 more served subpoenas to the board, and I knocked gently on Karen's front door. She opened it, robe on, eyes puffy, then saw me, and then the agent behind me. She didn't even speak. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Karen Richardson, one of the agents said, holding up a document, "You are hereby served. All digital and financial records under the Franklin Ridge HOA are being seized for federal investigation." Karen tried to slam the door, but another agent caught it. "Ma'am, refusal to comply with a federal subpoena is a felony." She backed up, hands shaking. "You don't understand," she sputtered. He left. His house was empty. I did what the HOA rules said. I stepped forward, calm and cold. "You forged legal documents. You misrepresented financials. You destroyed my house based on lies you wrote yourself. But the rules, you don't write rules that override the Constitution." Her backyard suddenly didn't feel so cozy anymore. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, phones recording. Karen stood frozen in her living room while agents boxed up her desktop computer and hard drives. For once in her life, Karen had no words. And I wasn't done yet. Next stop, the city permitting office, because the contractor who tore down my house. He was about to sing like a canary once he saw the felony paperwork headed his way. 3 weeks later, Karen stood in court, dressed in gray slacks and trembling like a leaf. Her lawyer whispered nervously in her ear as the judge flipped through a stack of files an inch thick. The courtroom was packed, HOA members, neighbors, even the local news. Everyone wanted to see the tyrant of Franklin Ridge get what was coming. And I sat quietly in the front row, arms folded, watching the entire thing unfold. I didn't need to say much now. The evidence spoke louder than any words ever could. Emails showing she personally blocked my payments. Signed demolition requests forged with a fake notary stamp. Internal HOA memos where she bragged about removing the abandoned eyesore before it brought down property values. And then the worst one, a voice recording, one Karen never knew existed, from the contractor. She told me the guy was deployed and wouldn't be back. Said she'd clean up the neighborhood before summer, paid in cash. Karen's face went pale when that played. She collapsed into her seat, eyes wide, mouth open. Her fake HOA crown shattered in front of the entire community. The judge looked over his glasses. Ms. Richardson, based on this evidence, you and select members of the board are being referred for federal prosecution, fraud, destruction of private property, falsification of documents, and illegal use of HOA funds. He banged the gavel. Case dismissed in favor of Mr. Brooks. Restitution will be awarded. Federal agents will process criminal charges separately. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I simply stood up and nodded. Justice wasn't loud. It was absolute. Outside the courthouse, Karen was swarmed by reporters, tripping over her heels trying to escape questions. One asked how it felt to be outsmarted by the very man whose house she destroyed. She didn't answer. Couldn't. But I wasn't done with her quite yet. 2 months later, the HOA was dissolved by court order. The residents voted to restructure it under state guidance. And guess who they elected to oversee the transition committee? Yep, me. I used my restitution funds and federal connections to rebuild my home exactly where it stood before. Brick for brick, but better, smarter, stronger. And Karen? Her home was seized to cover damages. Last I heard, she's living in a rented studio downtown, under investigation, broke, and barred from ever joining another HOA board again. All because she couldn't mind her own business. She tried to flex power in the name of rules, but she forgot, some rules are written in federal law, and she picked the worst possible house to mess with. Mine. Subscribe now. Drop a like and tell us your HOA horror story in the comments. Let's expose every Karen one click at a time.